Be honest. Have you ever felt like all you wanted was love, but even when someone gave it to you, it didn't feel like enough? You smiled, you nodded, you said thank you, but deep inside, something whispered, they don't really see me. They love the version I gave them, not who I actually am. And the more affection you received, the more invisible you started to feel. That's the paradox no one talks about. What you're craving might not be love. It might be permission to exist, not permission to perform, not to please, not to be valuable, attractive, useful, funny, kind, smart, polite, just to be angry, to be messy, to be unsure, to be still, to be tired, to be real. And deep down, you've never truly had that, because from the very beginning, your worth was tied to something. Your grades, your obedience, your appearance, your role in the family, your ability to smile even when you were dying inside. You learned that being seen meant being scanned. Being valued meant being useful. Being loved meant being a version of yourself that wouldn't rock the boat. So you became that version. Carl Jung called it the persona, the mask we wear to survive in society, to belong, to be accepted, to avoid rejection, abandonment, punishment. But here's the cost of wearing that mask for too long. Eventually, you forget there's a face underneath. You spend years building a life that looks good on paper, but feels hollow in your chest. You have people who care about you, but you still feel deeply alone. Because the child inside you isn't craving compliments or comfort. They're craving recognition. They want to know, am I allowed to exist, even if I'm not perfect? Will I still be loved if I stop trying so hard? Can I just be without proving that I deserve to be? You're not needy. You're not broken. You're not attention-seeking. You're just starving for something you were never fed. Not praise, not success, but unconditional permission to be here, as you are. And that hunger, it never goes away. It just changes shape. It becomes people-pleasing. It becomes anxiety. It becomes burnout. It becomes overthinking, overgiving, over-apologizing. It becomes a life where you constantly ask, without asking, is it okay for me to be me? No one told you to become someone else. They didn't have to. The messages came in sideways, a sigh when you were too loud, a look when you showed emotion, praise when you followed the rules, distance when you didn't. You picked it up fast. Who you are isn't good enough, but who you pretend to be just might be. So you adjusted, you edited, you censored, you learned to smile at the right times, nod in agreement even when it hurt, swallow your truth to keep the peace, apologize for existing just a little too loudly, and over time, the performance became seamless, automatic, so well rehearsed that even you forgot it was a performance. But here's the price no one warned you about. When you disconnect from your truth long enough, you lose the ability to recognize your needs. You don't know what you want. You don't know how to feel safe. You don't know how to say no, because you were never allowed to say yes to yourself. That's not weakness. That's adaptation. And it saved you, once. But now it's killing you. Because love built on performance isn't love. It's survival. Carl Jung believed that the persona, the mask we wear to please the world, is necessary to navigate society. But when we identify with the mask, we lose the self. You don't just hide your pain, you hide your joy, your wildness, your creativity, your aliveness. And the worst part? You attract relationships where the mask is loved, but your truth is ignored. So you start to feel hollow, lonely in connection, tired in joy, guilty for wanting more, not more affection, but more permission. Permission to feel what you feel, to ask for what you need, to show up without editing yourself to fit someone else's expectations. But instead of asking, you stay quiet. Instead of claiming space, you shrink. And every time you do, the inner child inside you whispers, "If I show them who I really am, they'll leave." So you keep feeding people versions of yourself. You keep working for love, earning worth, selling your silence as stability. But here's what you must understand. The real you is not too much. The mask is too little. You don't want to be loved for your performance. You want to be seen in your mess, your madness, your contradictions. You want to be held, not for being perfect, but for being whole. That kind of connection is rare, but it starts with you. It starts with you taking the mask off, even if just for a moment, even if only when you're alone, even if your hands shake while doing it, because the longer you stay hidden, the louder the emptiness becomes. And one day, you'll realize it was never love you were starving for. It was permission to stop hiding. You were never told directly, "You're only worthy when you're helpful." But somehow, that's what you learned. Because every time you were praised, it was for what you did, not for who you were. You cleaned up without being asked. Good job. You kept quiet when things were tense. You're so mature. You didn't cry when you were hurting. You're so strong. But when you were loud, sensitive, defiant, scared, you became too much. Difficult. Dramatic. So you adapted, not because you were weak, but because you were smart enough to survive. You became the peacekeeper, the responsible one, the achiever, the fixer, and slowly, without even knowing it, you made a trade. You traded authenticity for approval, presence for performance, self for safety. That's how the inner child becomes invisible, not because they're gone, but because they weren't allowed to stay. Carl Jung believed that until we reintegrate the parts of ourselves we've rejected, we live in a fractured identity, a half-life. And this is how most people live, giving their best to others, but never feeling real themselves. Loved, but not known. Needed, but not safe. Visible, but unseen. It's a specific kind of loneliness, the kind that doesn't scream. It just lingers, like background noise you can't turn off. And when someone finally does try to get close, you panic, because the real question isn't, do they love me? It's, would they still love me if they saw the parts I hide? The mess, the mood swings, the emptiness, the hunger to be held without earning it. That's the ache that never fully goes away, when your childhood taught you that love must be worked for. So even now, as an adult, you find yourself doing too much, being too agreeable, over-explaining, apologizing for asking, second-guessing your needs before you've even said them out loud, because somewhere inside you, a younger you is still asking, is it okay if I exist like this? Will I still belong if I stop performing? If I drop the act, will they stay? And that question doesn't get answered by others, because even if they say yes, you won't believe them until you say it to yourself first. If you felt any of this, if your chest got tight, your throat caught, or your mind whispered, "This is me," don't scroll away. That feeling, it's not random. It's recognition. It's a part of you knocking from the inside. So pause, breathe, and if this journey speaks to something you've buried, subscribe. Not just for the next video, but as a promise to keep listening to the voice inside you. The one that's tired of pretending. The one that doesn't want more noise, but more truth. We're not chasing love here. We're reclaiming the right to exist, together. So here's the real question. If you stopped trying to be impressive, if you stopped earning your place in the world, if no one was watching, who would you be? Silence answers that question. And for most people, the silence is terrifying, because we've spent our whole lives being someone for someone. The good kid, the reliable partner, the strong friend, the quiet employee, the successful whatever, And beneath all of that, a hollow space where the real you should be, but isn't. That space feels scary, but it's not empty. It's full of parts you pushed away to survive. Carl Jung said, "The privilege of a lifetime is to become who you truly are." But what happens when you have no idea who that is? When your dreams were shaped by expectation? When your likes and dislikes were edited for safety? When your needs were inconvenient, your emotions were too much, and your silence was rewarded? That's not identity. That's survival wearing a smile. So when people say, "Just be yourself," you feel a strange kind of shame, because you've performed for so long that the mask has melted into your skin, and now you're scared to take it off, not because of what others will see, but because you're not sure there's anything underneath. That is the identity crisis, not knowing what's you and what's strategy, not knowing if you like something because you like it, or because liking it made you safer. That's why you second-guess your intuition. That's why you feel disconnected from joy. That's why you feel like you're always acting, even when no one's in the room. The world told you who to be before you ever had a chance to ask yourself. So now, when you try to rest, to slow down, to say, "I don't know who I am," you feel lazy, lost, wrong. But you're not wrong. You're just early in the process of becoming real. That unease you feel, that discomfort, it's not weakness. It's the sound of the performance cracking, and underneath it is someone worth meeting. When the mask begins to crack, you don't suddenly discover your true self. You meet a stranger, one who's been silenced for a lifetime. You feel raw, awkward, uncertain, like trying to speak a language you forgot you knew. This is the moment where most people panic. They say, "This feels worse than before." At least with the mask, I had a role. I knew who I was. But here's the truth. That wasn't identity. That was familiarity. And what's familiar isn't always what's right. Carl Jung believed that becoming whole isn't about creating a new self. It's about returning to what was always there before the world edited you. You don't need to build yourself from scratch. You need to uncover what you buried. So what does that look like? It looks like trying things without needing to be good at them. It looks like saying what you think and not apologizing for it. It looks like feeling a boundary rise in your chest and actually honoring it. It looks like choosing discomfort over self-abandonment. You won't feel confident at first. You'll feel exposed, like you're letting people down, especially the ones who liked the old version of you. But let's be honest, if they only loved your performance, they never really saw you. You were just a character in their story, not the author of your own. And now you're writing your first real line. I exist, even when I'm not impressive. I deserve love, even when I'm not useful. I matter, even when I'm not productive, positive, or perfect. This isn't easy. This is deep nervous system work. This is emotional detox. This is decades of conditioning unwinding in your body. But with every decision to honor yourself, with every breath where you don't betray your truth, you get closer to the self that was never lost, only covered. And slowly, the noise fades, the doubt softens, the clarity returns, not in fireworks, but in moments. Moments when your no feels like home, when your silence isn't shame, but strength, when your reflection feels less like a stranger and more like someone you're proud to know. If you made it here, through the silence, the ache, the questions, you didn't just watch a video, you did something rare. You stayed with yourself. Most people look away. They scroll past. They numb the discomfort. They say, "This is too much." But you didn't. You sat with the part of you that always wondered, am I allowed to take up space? Am I enough without performing? Can I still be loved if I stop proving? And maybe for the first time, you didn't run. You didn't fix. You didn't filter. You listened. And that is everything. Carl Jung didn't promise clarity. He didn't say healing would be fast. He said that wholeness is earned through integration, through facing the parts of you you were taught to hide and choosing to bring them home. You've begun that journey. You've looked behind the mask. You've questioned the roles. You've heard the voice inside you, not the loud one shaped by fear, but the quiet one whispering, "I miss me." This isn't about becoming someone else. It's about remembering who you were before the world made you forget. And here's the twist no one tells you. You were never broken. You were fragmented, and every piece of you is waiting to be returned, not replaced. You don't need more validation. You don't need more approval. You need permission. Permission to exist, even when you're messy, to speak, even when your voice shakes, to rest, even when nothing's done, to feel, even when it's inconvenient, to be, even when no one claps. You've just done something revolutionary. You've chosen presence over performance, curiosity over control, truth over polish, and maybe, just maybe, you felt a flicker of peace in your chest that whispered, "I'm still here. I've always been here. And now, you finally see me." So take this with you, not just as insight, but as a new standard. No more begging for space. No more shrinking for comfort. No more asking permission to be who you already are. This isn't the end. It's the first time you've truly arrived. Welcome home.